Hello, and welcome to Premium Bytes, where we shine a light on the unsung world of insurance technology leaders. I am Sudhar Krishnamachary, one of your co-hosts, and with Samir Ahmed, our other co-host, we're here to have meaningful conversations about the evolving technology landscape inside the insurance industry. Let's acknowledge it. Being an insurance firm CIO or Chief Information Officer is one of the toughest leadership roles in today's world. You've got a risk-averse mindset baked into the very fabric of the industry, a legacy estate that must complement the modern tech, and a talent crisis from both the retiring side and next-gen recruiting side. And then you got the slower pace of innovation. We see it because we're right there in the trenches with you as consultants day in and day out. Our mission is to deep dive, have conversations that carry substance, offer practical insights, and help you validate and navigate the relevant challenges of being an effective CIO in the insurance sector. So thank you for joining us on this adventure. Let's jump right into our next conversation. Hey, Samir.
Hey, Sudhar. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Thank you. Welcome back to our next episode.
Yeah, here we are, episode 14.
Yeah, absolutely. In the middle of the wonderful hot summer season, at least on the East Coast, and assume in the rest of the country as well.
Yeah, for sure. We had a bit of a scare with the storms kicking off early in the year, and then it became hot. But, schools are out. People are sort of out of office, taking time with family. I did a little bit of that. Just got back after a 7-8 day vacation. I know you were on the road earlier.
I was. I have not. I wouldn't consider that as a vacation. It was more of an extended family trip. We didn't hit a beach. We went more inland.
Sure.
But nevertheless, it was a time out of this typical work schedule and locations. Yes.
Yeah, it's good to be back, and we had a couple recent episodes for folks that didn't catch them. Right, we did our end of Q2 roundup of conferences and news stories. That was episode 13, and then prior to that, we had episode 12, which was our last cyber episode, where Miguel Edwards, we had him on. Fantastic chat with him. A lot of people that had seen the episode or listened to it commented on the great insight he was able to provide. So any of you that haven't seen or heard those, I'd recommend them. Well worth your while.
Yeah. So, and again, as always, thanks for continued support and engagement. And with that, today we're kind of going to dive into a topic that is somewhat of an offshoot of the modernization, which we kind of touched on in one of our early episodes. But we're kind of going to dig into specifically about moving from legacy core insurance systems that is primarily on on-prem or in your own data centers to the cloud. Which is an interesting topic, I would think, Samir. But what's your reaction to that topic? I know we talked about the pros and cons of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, modernization itself is a big topic. We covered it in episode 2. Given the breadth of it, right, we could only go so far in any given area. We parked this specific foray for a deeper dive, and here we are. And even this, right, I don't think if we really want to do this justice, so we can cover it in, one 20, 30-minute chat. There's quite a bit to uncover. And I think maybe that can be a little bit of expectation setting for everybody listening in, that today we'll probably really just paint the landscape, identify what the different aspects are when we're faced with a question like should we move our legacy core systems to the cloud as part of modernization? Should we not? Is it just a given that it will happen, it's only a matter of time? So what have you, right? Number of aspects of this that are there. Today, we probably can just surface them, create the foundation for conversation. And next, I would say 2-3 episodes, we'll stick with this theme here. Different aspects of it, but all thematically modernization of core systems through the cloud.
I think this topic certainly deserves both a landscape view and a deep dive on, let's say, 3 or 4 topic areas. But at the end of the day, I think it's still a very relevant and timely topic. You would think I've been thinking about this topic partly because I've done kind of this work in the past, but I also think that will always remain a pressing issue in the transformation journey of most insurers. But at the same time, there's different flavors and varieties, and so this will never go away from the strategic priorities every year, even if they visit and decide to say yay or nay to doing a cloud transformation. And I'm sure you have other reasons why that can be relevant, but that comes to me at the top of my mind as a first.
Yeah, I think so, right? There's sort of different aspects of relevance, right? Modernization just by itself is always relevant. Core systems will always be core to the business, and as technology evolves, right, you just have to keep moving with the times. So it will remain relevant. Is it centralized computing? Is it distributed computing? Is it on-prem? Is it rented space? Is it cloud? Here, the pendulum kind of shifts back and forth. So there'll be some activity in all these directions at all times. I believe it's never going to be just everything in one.
Right. Although we should probably acknowledge that is being in the cloud necessarily a must requirement, or cloud enabling, if we can use that word to kind of describe that, you're really not moving it, but you're allowing it to be able to be integrated with other systems that are in the cloud, et cetera. So I think that's another reason that, even if the core systems themselves may or may not be required to be in the cloud, but there's some level of cloud enablement that will have to be relevant, right?
Yeah, the enablement, absolutely right. I think it's enablement of a variety of capabilities and technical options. Cloud is just one of them. And perhaps, right, as we sort of start talking about the core topic itself, right, maybe just briefly, there's an aspect of, what is an organization's approach and posture towards adoption of cloud-based solutions. That plays into this. And there's different postures that organizations have taken, and they have the options to change even if they have a certain posture right now. So we'll cover that as an exploration, right? Then there's okay, so you have your given posture, but what are the considerations for picking one, and what are the considerations for changing it? Because it's not a static industry, so there's a little bit we can discuss around that.
Right.
Then there's the core system providers themselves, their role in this. So to the extent that you have a core system that's supported by a provider that is not pulling you into the cloud, you have one set of options. To the extent you're with one of the players that has declared that the future with our solution and platform is on the cloud, well, you will not have that many choices then, right? You're going to be, they will be leading you into the cloud. Or, of course, you can move to a different provider. But, and to acknowledge it, right, the two leading core system providers these days, Duck Creek and Guidewire, they are in that spot. Time frames are different, but that's where they are. So there's some discussion we can have around that. Then there's some differences in options and constraints. Right? Yeah, whether you're in P&C space or life space, or are you a multi-line writer? So there's some differences and considerations that come in, and these are not just nuances, right? They're significant kind of considerations. And then within the core suite, right, you've got policy claim billing, traditionally that we consider core systems in insurance. You have different considerations for policy versus claims, for example, right? So each of these, I think, will become areas that we can unpack, and not all of them today. Like we were saying earlier today, perhaps we just kind of surface what are the discussion points under these headings, and then take each one.
I want to maybe tee up a much more fundamental, perhaps a definition question. Is that we on premises is something that insurers are obviously familiar with, having been adopted technology as one of the early adopters. So a lot of what insurers do is on premise. So does that necessarily mean cloud is not in play? I don't think so, but I'm curious if definition wise on premise can still be relevant.
Yeah, I mean, so let's just start there, right? So when folks are contemplating cloud enabled solution, right? I think what folks are really interested in are characteristics of a solution, rather than, is it in AWS or is it in my data center? I don't think that's typically the starting point. So what are these characteristics, right? Characteristics would be the ability to increase your computation capability or reduce it flexibly, on demand, real time, right? As opposed to in the old times, or even in current times, in some situations, you want more compute. Well, you first got to go talk to infrastructure, who's got to order the hardware, who's got to get it through procurement, and so this is not instantaneous, right?
You're always limited by the amount of capital investment you have made in your own, data center infrastructure or on-premise type infrastructures.
Yeah. So that's just one example, right, of this characteristic that we kind of technically would call elasticity, right? Your ability to increase or decrease your usage without much fanfare, right? And this can be for compute, this can be for network bandwidth, this can be for how much storage you need for data, so on, right? So this is a characteristic, right, that you're looking for, whether it's coming from cloud provider or whether it's coming from your own data center, I think is secondary. Then similarly, right, there's this idea of being able to take advantage of solutions that others are providing without having to go through a big implementation project, right? Well, it's a cloud-based solution. I just need a license and I'm up and running. I can use it. So that's another characteristic that when folks talk about a cloud-enabled solution or system, they're looking for that, and so forth, right? We can kind of go through somewhat academically, right? What are these characteristics? But that is, I think, what it comes down to is what characteristics do you care for, do you value, and then based on that, what makes sense.
Correct. I think maybe it's worth acknowledging that cloud as a phrase can be sometimes used as a label, and that there's things to unpack a little bit depending on who's saying that in what context and that. And someone might say, hey, we're not doing any cloud project. Doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't doing absolute nothing, that they may be qualifying that in some ways depending on what no cloud means, right? It could be that, hey, no cloud for, I don't know, maybe they are saying that I'm not going to go to the cloud for my core systems, but then for peripheral systems like in HR systems, they may already be in the cloud, but they just don't consider that as a cloud enablement of their own IP.
Yeah, for sure, right? And I think this gets into the various postures that companies have. So, who is not using one of these large email providers, right? You're maybe
Right.
using
So
Google
great
Suite,
example.
or maybe you're using the Microsoft 365 or what have you. Well, you are using cloud solutions, right? Or like you said, right? You get into uh, what software are you using for expense management, right? Oh, we're using Expensify, or we're using Concur,
Workday.
or we're using Certify, or
Right.
what have you. Well, they're all cloud-based solutions, so somebody somewhere is already using them. But sure, your core system, your policy system, maybe is not. So that's one kind of posture, right? That core systems that have our core data, uh, they are not in the cloud, but others, we're open to using cloud solutions. There's the other posture, right, which is around we only use private cloud, we don't use public cloud. So that gets into, right, this idea of the label, right, that just because you're in your own data center doesn't mean you're not on a cloud-based sort of infrastructure. You can have your own cloud-based infrastructure. Um, and then you get back to the same choice, right? That well, when you're getting Microsoft 365, it's not running in a private cloud; it's running in Microsoft Azure, and that's where you are using it too. You end up with okay, public cloud. Am I limiting myself to one public cloud provider? AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, the three major ones. Or no, I'm okay to have my solutions come from different sources, right? I'm in a multi-cloud situation. and
Which
and
seems to
and
be
then it
the
gets into,
direction,
sorry,
right?
just one quick thing, right? And it gets into is it different for when I'm just leasing software as a service because somebody else is running, managing, maintaining it? I don't really have a preference. Is it AWS or Azure? But when I'm building a cloud-based solution, I always do it in a certain public cloud infrastructure. So
Correct.
I get to choose, have a different variation of the posture.
Correct. But since our focus is really on the core legacy software, has the posture. I've seen both postures where they say, core systems, no, we're not interested in moving into the cloud. We've already looked at it. I don't have any ROI. But if it's a new product or a new market or something fundamentally new that I have a choice to put it on a new system, then maybe I'll probably take up whatever guide bar in the cloud and do that. But I think there's still some criteria or characteristics that needs to be considered.
Yeah, for sure, right? I mean, just to give it a sort of some rooting in reality, right? Last, I would say, 2 years, I've been having a reasonable amount of conversations with sort of companies that offer annuities. Uh, if you're in a traditional kind of core system, right, 12-month, 18-month time frame to launch a new product, right? Very typical, and that's even being aggressive, I would say. Now, yet you find yourself, go back maybe 12 months, interest rate climate is changing, and companies want to start offering multi-year guaranteed annuities. When before they didn't have a product to offer that on. So you all of a sudden have to very quickly launch a product, and you cannot wait 12, 18 months because, well, here we are, and we're starting to look at interest rates might get cut, and the window has started to, or potentially start to shrink in Q4. So companies have taken this route that, okay, well, it's a new product. I can't wait. So you know what? Let me get another option and launch this on the cloud because it lets me get the product out quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it's going to create complexity in my enterprise, and we'll have to figure out how we rationalize it later. But for now, that's what we got to do. Absolutely, right? I think maintain what you have with the legacy. New stuff goes on a cloud-based solution. That is a pathway for some companies.
And are there? I'm thinking about other complexities, like I think you mentioned product, the nature of the product, the nature of the renewability of the product, and things like that. And then I would assume, like one of the other constraints that everybody else is also dabbling with is talent. One of the people that I've been speaking with is are they genuinely like hey, I don't really have people in my employee base that are well trained in cloud and cloud enabled DevOps and cloud enabled just digital technology portfolio work.
Yeah, I mean, this talent crisis, right, is just at multiple layers, right? The industry as a whole, right, has this challenge with how do you attract young people to this industry that on the surface is not very appealing. Then within that, right, specifically the tech talent pool, right, when they have options of, and particularly in this climate of work from anywhere, where you're not limited by geography on who your employer could be. How do you attract people to work on mainframe COBOL based system? That's even going further back. How do you attract somebody to work on a distributed system based on Java and WebSphere, right? Even that nobody's interested in doing.
No, I think that, but to a degree, I think that's why I feel like there's a lot of partnership and ecosystem play getting involved. Is that perhaps the employee base is just doing the maintenance work on whatever the old systems are, and then a bunch of technology partners, consulting players, or whatnot are driving a lot of that new work or transformation work.
Yeah, and I think there's more to unpack here, right? Because there's some cultural implications of doing that, right? Because you end up creating like two classes of employees, then, right?
Right.
And
And so in that spirit,
that.
I think these are all concerns, and we won't touch on every one of these. But I think hopefully we're painting a landscape of all these questions and interesting dynamics evolving. And I want to bring it back to, I think you already touched on Guidewire and Duck Creek. Perhaps I'm not going to use the word forcing, but asking the insurers who are on their older generations of software to say, hey, by a certain date, you got to upgrade to a cloud-based version. But I don't know if that necessarily is an easy decision for insurers.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you're right that forcing is a strong word, but the incentives that they provide are to move to their cloud-based solutions for sure. And it shows up in several different tactics that they use, right? So tactic number one would be that you're on a version that we're no longer supporting. You want to use it, keep using it, but you're on your own for support. Tactic number two is that we're not building new features. We support it, but we're not enhancing it. For new enhancements, you got to be on our cloud-based version. Tactic number three is, we'll enhance it, we'll support it, but we'll charge you twice as much. You move to the cloud-based solution, it will be half the cost, right? So there's a financial incentive. And then there's the end of life declaration that happens, right? That no, you're just not licensed to use that software anymore. So all these are different levels of incentive that
And
companies are
on the other
providing.
hand, I think if I'm thinking like an insurer, I'd be like, oh, it's not like a flip of a switch, right? The platform provider has thousands of reasons, but does it really make my IT estate more complex or less complex? Do I have to your point, like, we touched on the posture, like, suddenly my posture decision is up in the air and I have to change my decision around data security and cloud security and cybersecurity risks and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Right?
for sure. And you've got a CIO that has to go in front of the CFO and defend the decision to spend all this money on first do an upgrade project so I can get to a version that then allows me to transition to the cloud. So I got to do two projects, and CFO will ask, okay, so what's the benefit we're getting from this? And the answer in some cases might be simply just we will retain the right to use the software. Doesn't bring us
Right.
any net new business, does not create any real new efficiency. Although that efficiency argument is there, and that's what everybody tries to lean into. But
So yeah, so in that spirit, I think that's another set of complexity around the CIO decision point
correct.
when the platform players are, call it compelling them to make that decision, and then moving the landscape along to then the next decision point in complexity comes in while the platform players and our own postures are up in the air. Is it a policy system or a claim system is another big elephant in the room, and depending on if you're a PNC carrier or a life carrier, the dynamics could be different, right?
Yeah, for sure. Right. One aspect of it is, right. Are you an enterprise that believes in suite of solutions, or do you believe in the best of breed? If you're, uh, a believer in, I shouldn't say believer, right? But
Maybe commitments, right? They
your
must have already
commitments
made those
are
commitments,
and
right?
preferences are for suites, then it's one decision for all three. But if you're in the best of breed camp, then yeah, they're independent decisions. And the way I've experienced it is that in PNC, right, it's very common that move to a new core system, and for policies you renew into the new system. Cloud has nothing to do with it, right? It's just simply an option because you have renewable business. Some is every 6 months, some every 12 months, some maybe 2 years, but with a reasonable amount of time, everything moves over. Claim, on the other hand, right, you've got in-flight claims. So one option is, you leave the claim in the old system and you start new claims in the new system. But then, well, claims, sure, most of them settle in 90 days, then some more in 120, 180 a year. But you get into like 2 years, 5 year, 10-year, 20-year long claim life cycles. What do you do with them? So you've got different set of decisions to make, and then to add on to that, you've got you can have a claim made many years after the policy term has already ended. Maybe even the policy is no longer in force, right? You got to open a new claim, and now you got to decide, right, how you're going to handle that situation. So
Correct.
different considerations definitely are there.
I think I like to think that in a spectrum, the complexity at some point is linear to a degree, and then suddenly it increases exponentially depending on some of these constraints that you have. Again, just to reiterate the premise and the tagline and the objective of our own podcast is that it's the unsung world of insurance technology executives, right?
Yeah, absolutely, right. And then just circling back to finishing the thought, right, that on the P&C side with renewable products, right, you've got this consideration. If you're in sort of a life and annuity space, right, where this idea of renewability is very different, you don't get the option of renewing into the new system on the next term, right? So you've got a policy from 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Some cases like, you've got a policy that was taken out on a child when they were born, and then it maybe at that time was, for 15, 18 years. But when they reach age of majority, they convert into a permanent product. And so this policy is 60, 70, 80 years old, and it's still active, right? So you deal with all of that. And while maybe your current book of business is based off of 7, 8 actively sold products, your supported base of plans is in the hundreds. So you
Absolutely. I think this whole there's a huge $1 billion market swirling around these closed blocks, just on the life and annuity side alone. Right?
Yeah.
And back to the question that we asked is it possible for us to cover these topics in one? I think this is why it's a landscape, and every one of these is like a mine that we can go in.
That's right. Yeah. And I would say like disability and long-term care, right? They're all kind of in this kind of bucket where the complexities on the policy, not on the claim.
Correct. Right. But sometimes I worry that I think these decisions are getting punted. Some decisions are like, if you have a really small block and a small legacy system and you only have, another 10, 15 years worth of policies there, then yeah, you can run it down. But there are blocks where not a lot of these decisions are one and done decisions, in the sense that you may be punting, and that the longer you punt, the cost and the complexity, it's going to exacerbate. And there's very, very few organizations which can take up that work as we keep punting.
Yeah, right? I think so. Another dynamic in it, right, is that again, in this space with life, disability, long-term care, right, you've got this pattern of, okay, it's closed block, I'm going to move my own business, active business, to a modern system. What do I do about the old? They're still active, but no longer sold. Okay, give it to a BPO, provider. So you outsource that. But then in some situations, you do the reverse of it, right? That you want to bring it back because you're not happy with the quality of service, or different considerations, different reasons why it happens. But it goes in both directions. So that becomes another consideration. Acquisitions, right? They play a role. Growth through acquiring blocks of business. Well, it's not even our originally offered products, right? But now I need a system to manage and maintain it. So
it's interesting. You bring the M&A piece. There's the M&A on the carrier side, but then there's M&As happening on the platform and product side too. We touched on Zinnia in the last episode.
That's right.
And the only reason we brought that up is because the same dynamic is that there's a lot of these systems that are in on-premise in multiple carriers with thousands and millions of policies sitting on these, and they're moving hands, and so it just creates more consternation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So clearly, this is a topic that is worth deep diving at a future point. But I guess to your point, I think you're just highlighting this. There's a spectrum on the P&C life side, there's a spectrum on the claims policy side and the billing side. And perhaps there's nuances around other parts of the capabilities for which, if there's a legacy system, the criteria and the decision points are different.
Yeah. So, I mean, what do we do with this, right? To maybe just quickly transition to that, right? So I think for purposes of a podcast, I think one thing to share is that we'll take each of these, and I don't know exactly, does it end up being 3 more episodes on this, but we'll have an arc, at least talk about cloud posture approaches, reasons and considerations, how you change, so forth. We'll talk more around considerations for P&C. We'll talk about considerations for life. And then we'll talk around, this best of breed versus suite for the core system. So we'll see. Maybe somewhere in there we can bring in a guest as well that has gone through some of this to talk about it.
Without sounding like we're advocating or sponsoring certain service provider or players. That would be great to bring outside perspective.
Yeah, for sure. So this is one aspect of it, right? I think second aspect that might be worth acknowledging, right, is that like a lot of things, there is no single answer here, right? The answers have to be contextualized to the organization and its specific set of circumstances. So while there's patterns, while there's approaches, the journey for one is just the journey for that one. The journey for the next is their own. So I think that's probably worth acknowledging.
Yeah. Given we're catering to the insured sector as focused as it can be, but I think the devil is in the details, right? There's just so many different shades of gray within insurance in different sectors.
Yeah, and I think an extension of that, right, is that for companies that are going through this, it's important to have a guide along with you, right? Somebody that has been through this, maybe has seen it in a few different environments and is familiar. Because look, every organization has smart, capable people, and they'll figure it out. But it's one thing to figure it out as you're going, and it's a completely different journey when you have somebody that's been there, done that, and knows how to anticipate situations and can make the journey a little bit smoother.
Correct. No, completely echo that sentiment that a consultative, collaborative, probably a diverse transformation team assembled will probably have the best chance of modernizing and then moving whatever is appropriate to the cloud and still delivering on the business outcomes, right? So, yeah.
And then one final thought on this, right? I think no conversation around technology can end without this recognition that the technology is just the one piece, and its role is enablement, right? All of these decisions, they have to start with the talent, the people, the culture, the processes, and what is our approach to them, and then the technology is there to kind of support all of that.
Absolutely, which ties it back to the talent, culture, and an ROI, and so back to several criteria and constraints.
Yeah,
but. No, I think it's a great discussion. I think we're going to follow through, maybe immediately or subsequently to that. I think at least 1 or 2 follow-up episodes digging into this. So looking forward to that. In the meantime,
I was just gonna invite all of you listening in. Right, what aspects of this would you like us to cover? Please let us know. You have. Absolutely a voice in shaping what the next few episodes will be. So share and comment and let us know.
Subscribe and share, and thanks for your continued support, guys.
And that's a wrap for today's conversation on PremiumBytes, where we shine a light on the unsung world of insurance technology leaders. Thank you for joining us on this adventure and being part of our community. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and follow us. Until next time, take care.